Sabine, are you ready for us to start?
Just like 2 minutes. We're just trying to get, we have a projector running upstairs because we have like 12 folks in the conference room. So we're just trying, hopefully they can get connected before we start.
Perfect.
Pauline, you can start at 6:10. That's cool.
Somebody's hurt my people, and it's gone on far too long. It's gone on far too long. It's gone on far too long. Somebody's hurt my people, and it's gone on far too long. And we won't be silent anymore. Somebody's hurt my brother, and it's gone on far too long. It's gone on far too long. It's gone on far too long. Somebody's hurt my brother, and it's gone on far too long. And we won't be silent anymore. It's gone on far too long. It's gone on far too long. Somebody's hurt my people, and it's gone on far too long. We won't be silent anymore. Somebody's hurt my brother, and it's gone on far too long. It's gone on far too long. It's gone on far too long. Somebody's hurt my brother, and it's gone on far too long. And we won't be silent anymore. And we won't be silent anymore. And we won't be silent anymore.
Thank you so much, Pauline. That was beautiful. Thank you. My name is Beth Dubois. I serve as the interim tri-chair for the New York State Poor People's Campaign. Welcome to all who are gathered here tonight to honor the life and legacy of our brother Patrick. Thank you for bringing your spirits, your hearts, your memories, and your commitment to share with us. Let us take just a moment to center ourselves and bring all of ourselves here in silence. Gracious God of many faith traditions, hear our cries to you. Somebody's hurting our family, and it's gone on far too long. Faithful friends who have no formal faith tradition, join your voices with ours. Somebody's hurting our family, and it's gone on far too long. You who have died in the struggle, hear our shout. Somebody's hurting our family, and it's gone on far too long, and we won't be silent anymore. Let us join our spirits, our hearts, our memories, and our commitment to bend this arc of justice so that our brother Patrick's memory is both a blessing and a revolution. Amen. May it be so.
Thank you, Pauline and Beth, for opening us up tonight in song and prayer. And thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight for the memorial of Patrick Braswell. My name is Sabine Adler, and I worked with Patrick this last year with the Rochester Homeless Union and the Poor People's Campaign. I was fortunate to learn and work alongside Patrick very closely in the last months of his life. 3 months ago, I was in this very room the chapel at House of Mercy, filming a homeless memorial with Patrick and Sister Grace. I had no idea that 3 months later, I'd be in this space again, holding a memorial for Patrick. I didn't know Patrick for very long, but it did not take long to see the kind of man, friend, and leader he was, and will always continue to be through all the many people that knew him, whether it be from one short interaction or long friendship. News of Patrick's sudden and unexpected passing on February 5th, 2021, completely shocked and devastated his community. I don't know if that feeling will ever fade from losing such an incredible person who devoted his life to fighting the war against the poor. Patrick led with intention and purpose, always telling me and teaching me why he did this work. It was not for recognition or personal gain. He wanted to change lives. He wanted to help, and he wanted to save lives. He wanted to prevent death in his community, where homelessness is the death sentence created by our power system. He was so clear on his mission, or as he put it, his assignment from God. While his time was cut short, his assignment lives in all of us to carry it on. I am very grateful to share the space with all of you to honor and remember the life of Patrick Braswell. We will hear from those who are closest to him and the impact of his life and work had on his community. We will be together in song and watch videos of Patrick that we are so grateful to have. So I'd like to invite first Crystal Lerner, Patrick's girlfriend, to share a few words.
I have a little reading. It's to do kindly indeed. Please bless my little home, dear Lord, and those who live within, and bless each one that visit the Lord and all who enter in. My friends are special people. Lord, a blessing from above, and the neighbors too, without doubt, who shows a special love, for all have shown kindness by a little thing they do. A pan of bread or something said, or just a hug or two. Please help me, show me gratitude to someone else in need, by helping those less fortunate and doing a kindly indeed.
I'd like to invite next Tara, a close friend at House of Mercy.
I'm not good at speeches. When I first met Patrick, approximately about 3 years ago, when I first came here, and he greeted me with open arms. Because at the time I felt ashamed because I was homeless, and we had a business and a personal relationship. He was truly a good and kind person to whether or not you were homeless or not. He was always kind to you, no matter what your situation was. I considered him more than a co-worker. He was a family to me. He was always doing things for the community and our homeless around the city. If you had an issue with anyone or anything, no matter what he was going through, he'd still make time for you. He would sit down and talk to you, no matter what he's going through. He always made me laugh when I didn't feel like it. He was a true friend, and I'm glad that I had a chance to meet him. I love you. I miss you. God, please take care of Patrick until we meet again. Thank you.
I'd like to invite next Sister Grace of House of Mercy, who was a mentor, friend, and a second mother to Patrick.
Patrick came to us from St. Joe's when we were starting the homeless union, and his heart was always into helping all the homeless. He so wanted the best for the homeless, having experienced homelessness himself. Besides being the president of our local homeless union and planning all our demonstrations, Patrick visited all the homeless shelters in the city, He looked for the homeless on the streets wherever they were. He visited Tent City. Homeless were always in his heart and his mind. And he went to all the places where he could find homeless. And he'd come back and he would tell me about his trips. His heart was definitely with the homeless, and he really dedicated his life to helping the homeless wherever they could be found. It seemed like he couldn't do enough for them. I will always remember when we were protesting outside the Cadillac Hotel, demanding that the hotel be for the homeless. We were outside because the owners wouldn't let us inside. They locked the doors. So we were there 24/7 to let the city and county know how serious we were about our demands. Patrick was there throughout the whole demonstration, which lasted for days. Night and day, Patrick stayed outside the hotel demonstrating. There were some cold nights and snow began to fall, but Patrick was still there. Many protesters would go home at night and return the following morning, but Patrick, along with Preacher and Mildred, remained outside the hotel throughout all the days of our demonstration. He showed great fortitude and great interest and a big heart for the homeless. When Sister Rita and I stayed overnight, Patrick and Preacher gave up their cots for us and gave us his best spot to sleep in, and with an alcove where we were protected from the winds of the cold night. Patrick and the rest slept on the sidewalks or just stayed up all night protecting the group of protesters. They felt they needed to protect our people. They showed so much interest and so much care. I always worried about the homeless on the streets, and I still do. But I always felt so much better when I knew that Patrick was walking the streets looking out for the homeless. Patrick was at the house every day and into the evenings. Every day he would walk into my office and we would talk about the homeless, our plans and hopes for the homeless. He also volunteered at the House of Mercy. The House of Mercy became his home even after he moved into an apartment. Patrick and I had many heart-to-heart conversations. He would tell me how much he loved the House of Mercy and how he discovered love here. He said he didn't really know what love was until he came here. He touched my heart deeply. I want to say that Patrick always had love in his heart, although sometimes I think he was unaware of it. It was something he slowly had to realize, but his love came to light through his love for the homeless. And gradually he was able to open up to loving himself and allowing others to love him. When I heard of Patrick's passing, I was in a state of shock for a long time. I began to think something was wrong with me because I couldn't pull myself together. The image of Patrick was always there in front of me. Gradually, and it took some time, I realized I was mourning Patrick's death. I missed him. I missed him coming into my office. I missed our talks. I missed his presence. I missed hearing about the latest events regarding the homeless, not only locally, but also nationally. I missed our planning homeless events. I missed him. I still miss our special times together. I will always miss Patrick because of his great love for the homeless and his greatest desire to help them, and also for his love for the House of Mercy. I want to say to Patrick tonight and to all present and listening, we love you, Patrick. Your love for the homeless earned you a special place in all of our hearts, but especially in the heart of Jesus, who himself was homeless. And Patrick, I know you are now with many of our former friends, our homeless friends who have gone before you and are waiting for the rest of us to eventually join all of you in heaven. So one day, Patrick, we will be all together, all of our homeless friends, you, all of us together, and it'll be a happy day. So Patrick, rest in the Lord We will never forget you. You will always live in our hearts. Thank you, Patrick, for being such an important part of our lives. Thank you, Patrick, for following the legacy of Christ, the legacy of Christ's love for our homeless. Be happy in heaven. We'll be joining you sometime.
I'd like to invite next a close friend, Tyrone Hodge.
Good evening. Patrick used to say this particular phrase. He said, when there's short notice in a speech, that he's going to go off the rip or off the hip. And I want to, in commemoration of him, is to do exactly that. When I met Patrick, like Sister Grace said, he just came from the St. Joseph, and I didn't know who he was. And I, just had some particular eyes on him, and just saw this guy doing some marvelous things and powerful things. And, it just was, just his character was sort of, somewhat attracted to me. And, even to be a little transparent, I even got a little jealous of what he was doing. And instead of being jealous, I thought to myself, you know what? I should get with this guy and help him. Help push some of the things that he was trying to accomplish. And with that being said, I found myself in a predicament where it was very hard to keep up with Patrick. I felt like the little baby brother with the blanket, don't want to let go his blanket, and he was dragging me along, and I tripped over my steps just trying to keep up with him. And, we shared some really special moments. We went almost every day, everywhere together. And one of the things I remember him saying that we were attempting to, clone each other, so that you'll always see him, and whatever you get from him, you will get from me. And it was becoming that. It was becoming that. People, when I walk into a room, and if I'm before him, they'll say, Patrick. So it was working somehow. One of his characteristics, just getting to know him, was he was so provoking. He'll provoke you to do something. I often, in meetings or around the House of Mercy, would just be, just waiting for him to say something. Because whatever he said, it'll blow your mind. And I used to wonder, where did he get this stuff? How did he know this stuff? And I kind of got tired of waiting to hear it, because, I was like, I might need to study, so he provoked me into that, to start studying for myself and looking up the answers and researching stuff. And I thank him so much for that, because I learned a lot through just being with him. Like I talked to, Joe had, I had a conversation with Joe just, I think it was a week after his passing, and I just was struggling with the whole concept that he wasn't here anymore. And, I was telling Joe how we would stay up late at night when everybody's asleep, and for 4 or 5 hours, we're back and forth on the phone, just challenging each other. And, he's trying to get the last word in, I'm trying to get the last word in, and make sure that it's a word that will keep him up all night. That, that was all, and Joe called it sparring, and I didn't know it was that. But I somehow, even though he used to get me angry, he challenged me so hard. But I liked it. I enjoyed it. I miss it. Uh, you know, there's so much I could talk about him. He cloned me. He coined me the mixer. I remember the very day he pointed at me and said, "You're the mixer." And I really didn't know what he meant by that. But now I know. I didn't, when I got up to speak most of the time, I didn't speak just about social justice. I intertwined it with everyday life or some kind of experience I had. So I realized he was saying, you mix it all up and make it make some kind of sense. And I cloned him the shovel because I don't think that anything could get past Patrick. He just was that type of guy that just so alert about everything, every situation, and his, just being able to walk with him and be around him and just sharing the experience with him, I learned what it takes to be committed to something and how persistent you have to be just by, watching him. He'd make it to every beating. He would, if he have to go, he'll say, "Ty, I'm out of here. I gotta go. I gotta go get on this meeting." So dedicated, so focused. I remember another phrase he used to use: when he gets tunnel vision, he can't think of anything else. He just go and do the thing. I want to say, one of the things, just having him as a friend, a close friend, he'll call me, he'll check on me. "Hey, Ty, you okay?" He was like a brother. He was like my own flesh and natural flesh brother. He looked out for me like that. He got gifts for my kids. And one of the things, if he were here now, I would want to tell him one last thing. That the clone is completed. Thank you.
Yeah, he's always wearing glasses. He's always wearing glasses.
Thank you. And we will hear next from Kristen Colangelo, a close friend, mentor, and fellow organizer with the National Union of the Homeless.
Thank you, Sabine. And wow, to go after Tyrone has just swirled up a number of memories in my heart and in my mind. I'm with the National Union of the Homeless that reestablished in 2019, but I knew Patrick a number of years before that. And, we were talking about Rochester and working in Rochester before we had a national network and trying to figure this stuff out together. And he was just really centered and really clear. And you're going to hear that from people who talk about him tonight. I just wanted to go through some of the memories I have for him. And I also have a statement from our homeless union minister and lead of our Clergy Council, Dr. Minister Savina Martin, who unfortunately can't be with us tonight. Anthony Prince, you'll hear from later. I know Willie Baptist is watching, and all of our leaders across the country are part of this statement as well. Savina is unfortunately having to minister somewhere else tonight, but sends her love. I went through so many videos and texts today to just ground me in my love and connection to Patrick. And some of the things that came up for me was he made a statement at one of the events in Rochester city government where he had a call to action to us that we have to think and we have to understand and we have to study and ask questions about why this system is set up to not end homelessness and not end poverty. And the reason I start with that is because Patrick was centered in political education. We started studying some of the organizing techniques together about 8 years ago, 7 years ago. And he would always ask these questions. His story, if you hear his story, he told it at Rochester House of Mercy. And also there's a recording with Sister Grace of him on a radio station where he tells his story. And his story connects and highlights all the flaws in this system. He tells a story of a worker who gets injured and can't get unemployment and loses his home and ends up in a shelter. And he talks about what he went through emotionally and personally. And then he talks about weaponizing those emotions and turning them into a power to transform the very system that threw him out on the street. And he raged campaigns with the folks in Rochester, the organizers you'll hear from tonight, against sanctions that threw people back out into the streets and against taking places where people were living like Cadillac. And he raged these wars against the system that was making people homeless. And he spoke out about the hypocrisy. I remember over the years going through these fights for changes in the city coming out of the government. And we had this conversation tonight, and he sounded so angry and so disillusioned. And he said, they make us promises, but they're just empty lies. They figure out a way to say in public what they will do, but in private, they figure out a way to not do it. And this is why they are not the answer. He said, Kristen, we're the answer. We have to organize, and we have to come together, and we have to fight. And it was such a powerful conversation. And Tyrone, I think about New York, I think about Rochester, I think about DC, and all these places that we were together when Patrick's mind never stopped. Didn't matter where he was always thinking. And one of the things that I read today that he texted me when we were going back and forth was his commitment to people. He says, I understand that, yes, we may not get what we want, but when you have to, on a daily basis, see the look on the face filled with dissatisfaction and disappointment on those you know, and then you see that same look on your face in the mirror, that's why we fight. We see this look every day on the faces of the people we're fighting for, and that's why we fight. Patrick, I still, every day, think I need to talk to Patrick. I need to call Patrick. And I have a moment where I miss him so fiercely. But then I remember I can talk to Patrick any day I want. All I have to do is pray. And he'll be there and he'll hear, and his spirit's still with me. And I just want to raise up with Dr. Savina, and I talked about a couple things. One of the scriptures that we're thinking about is Psalms 34:18, where it says, the Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Well, that's what Patrick did. The Lord sends us people to help us do this work of being with the brokenhearted and the crushed, and to empower them to change the system. And one of the quotes from Dr. Martin Luther King, right before he was assassinated, that nothing would be more tragic than to turn back now. So in the name of Patrick, the fight for Cadillac, the fight to end sanctions that throw people back out on the street, and the very fight to end homelessness, in your name, Patrick, I love you, I miss you, and in your honor, I will continue this battle. And I want to thank Sabine and Lorette and everybody who coordinated this tonight. God bless you, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Kristen. We're now going to be together in song. Jamel Coy Hudson with the New York State Poor People's Campaign will be singing Precious Lord.
Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, help me to stand. I'm tired when I'm weak. I am worn, but through the storm, through the night, lead me on to the light. Take my hand, precious Lord, and lead me on. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I was lost, but now I'm found. Once was blind, but now I see. Amazing grace, amazing grace, how sweet, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, was lost, but now I'm found. Once was blind, but now I see.
Thank you, Jamel. Back in November, one of the first big projects that I worked on with Patrick was filming a short documentary with Richard Barber called The Road We're On. I'm sure some of you have seen it. I'm going to introduce Richard Barber to talk a little bit about it, but working on that film with Patrick and just seeing so clear that work that he was doing, it hurts. It's hard to lose such an incredible person, such an incredible leader. But I'm so grateful and fortunate that we can continue to learn on from his words from this documentary that we were able to do this past year. So with that, I'm going to introduce Richard Barber.
I'm really happy to be here tonight to share this with you. And so I didn't know Patrick as long as some of you did. I first met him in a Zoom thing, sort of, on a little screen like we're doing tonight, just a little less than a year ago, when he spoke with us at the media team for the New York State Poor People's Campaign, and spoke with such passion and urgency about how important it was for him to share the work he was doing and the things he was seeing every day, and that other people needed to see this and know what he was seeing every day. And it just struck me really forcefully that this really did have to get, there had to be a way to make a film that would show this. And so we spoke a few times on the phone, and then finally, and I didn't actually meet Patrick in person until one amazing day in November, where I spent the whole day with Patrick and Sabine in Rochester. And for me, it was an amazing day. For Patrick, it was probably a day like almost every other day for him. But you just see what a powerful presence he was, and what a powerful force he was when you see what he does, what he did in a typical day, and you hear his voice, and so I feel very grateful that I was able to help make something that preserves his memory and his attitude and his example for all of us. So so I will try to press the right buttons to share the film with you now. Sabine, there should be something I press for specifically for sharing a video, but I don't see it.
Got like 5 boxes. Guess what to do with it, Dave? All right? Yeah, I'm good. I'm a tree surgeon. I climb trees for a living. All right, now. How's it going, brother? I'm good today. Every day we park our equipment to pass by those people standing in line at the open door mission. We sit in the tree truck, and I'd be like, those people, and that would be our conversation, those lazy people. Look at that one, you know. And I wind up, a lot of those people that I seen that were standing in that line, you know, by dealing in the sheltering system now, I see those people, you know what I mean? And none of those people were what we said they were, you know? You're all right. Because I was in the same situation where I had to come out here and stay in Tent City, you know, in 0 degrees in a tent. Believe it or not, I done stayed in that same place right there plenty of nights. You hear me? And I began to find out, you know, these people aren't what I was made to believe. They're just people just like me, and some just is going through changes in their lives.
Me and my brother, every day we work, actually have jobs.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the money goes into generators. You see, we got solar panels, we got batteries paid for, we got, you know, sleeping bags, things like this, tents that we pay for out of our own pocket.
Well, we're working on trying to get another converter box, so at least you have some power during the winter. People would tell me I lost my apartment because I got sanctioned. They didn't have a proper document, or they didn't show up to a work detail. So then I'm thinking, I'm like, this seems like it's meant to not have a person be able to go through social service, or to get Medicaid, or to get an education, or to get a proper home to stay, or to get a decent job. We decided to start an organization. Hello? No, I'm at Mercy. I found out that this would be a really good place to have as a base for the homeless union.
I thought there has to be a place in Rochester that's open 24/7 that will welcome homeless people, anybody in need, any time of day or night.
Because of COVID, normally these will all be filled with people. Because of COVID, we can't house anybody.
We try to keep them separated. Some people, when COVID hit, they wouldn't dare walk through these doors. We lost all the people that would come in here volunteering because they're afraid they're going to get COVID from these homeless people, you know? Danny, wake up, Danny. So then the homeless had to step up and run the business themselves. This is one of our lead security guys. And we gave him a job assignments, one to clean, one to do this, one to do that, whatever was needed. He lives here as a resident. He found him a place to stay. But he comes back and help us now. You know what I mean? 7 days a week. 7 days a week. And make sure people keep the mask on. And then we haven't had a case of COVID in this building, which is amazing.
The power is going to come from people who have absolutely nothing to gain and nothing to lose from this system. But it's also so hard to organize people who literally don't have stable housing. Like, there's so much, you're in survival mode.
One guy in particular I'm looking for, he went from getting out of prison straight up to living up on that bridge. And so I've been there quite a while. And everybody continues to say, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And they've even interviewed him on the news. Still nobody's come there to help him. All he wants is his ID. He's got no ID. They can automatically take him to jail.
Like, when you wake up in the day, you're just thinking, how am I going to live today? How am I going to find something to eat? How am I going to stay safe? So to now try and add organizing on top of that, of a system, like, that's just really difficult work to do. So a lot of organizers in the National Homeless Union talk about, like, projects of survival and how that is political and revolutionary just to house people, to feed people, because you need to do that in order to actually move forward to get political power. I feel like Patrick really embodies both. Like, all day he's running around trying to get people to be able to live their life, but then he's also trying to work towards trying to change the system. So you have to do both at once.
Are we getting a non-driver ID card?
Yeah, I just got to get a replacement.
Yeah.
Somebody stole my wallet.
What people do is like, well, he's choosing not to be in a shelter, so he's choosing not to get help. We don't have the right help for people if that's like your only option.
Appreciate anything people help me out with. I'm a little down on my luck. I had 4 back surgeries, and unfortunately I got addicted to painkillers, and that led to heroin and homelessness, and it's been about a year off and on out in the street now, so it's been hard. I'm not gonna give up though. I'm still trying to.
Think about coming to a shelter? I'm always behind the desk.
Oh, okay.
Or just ask for Patrick, and we'll work with you, man. It's gonna get cold, bro.
All right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Homelessness is not just necessarily people under a bridge. It's people living in cars. Like, it's people who are couch surfing. Like, there's so many people who, like, fall into that category who, like, get missed. And so the number is so much higher.
You can't have so many people in the sheltering system because of COVID. And they decided to start sending people to the hotels, like the Radisson Hotel.
It's been proven the hotel is probably the best place for them right now.
We watch people that were homeless go into those hotels. 2 or 3 weeks later, a month, you can barely recognize that person. And their character, they got their dignity back. They feel like they're somebody. All they want to do is get out and take care of themselves properly. And when they get at that extent, next thing you know, the hotel's ejecting them right back into the street. We've been trying to get transformational housing. It's supposed to be transitional, I say transformational housing, because I've seen a lot of people just transform into themselves, back to themselves. You know what I mean? You didn't have to transition them back to themselves. They've been there before. They just transform. That traumatic person that's been homeless, he goes back to himself and have a desire to help the brother, help the sister, because I consider us all brothers and sisters that are coming through those doors. Well, the city of Rochester is one of the 4th most impoverished cities in America. After Kodak shut down, Xerox shut down, and took all other companies into different places in different other cities. It's just been terrible ever since. We never got the opportunity to build back up. Our city somehow has the idea that they can bring Rochester back by gentrifying the community. So the people in the suburbs want to come back and live. The majority of our people are unable to afford the rents $800, $900, $1,500 a month. $400 or $500 is what they could possibly afford, and they put them into rooming houses in the inner city. A regular home of 3 bedrooms, they cut it up and put 5, 6, 7, sometimes 10 rooms, and rent them out separate, $440 a month, so they could make money. Now COVID's hit, and just those everyday regular people that we used to tell, oh, you're just one paycheck away, realize they are just one paycheck away, because some of them didn't get that paycheck and they're on the street being evicted. Something to eat, bro? Yes. The death rate has been climbing. I was just telling a friend the other day about, well, they came to me and said, hey, you know, Crystal died. I'm like, wow. And then a day later, they telling me where Andrea died. And a couple days later, I get where they was telling me Charles died. These are the people that have died throughout the years, throughout House of Mercy. And instead of having them here on the cross, we decided to have this built, donated, and we're going to start putting their names on each bird. What size you wear? You gonna be here tomorrow? Here every day. I'll bring you some clothes out. And I'll see if I can find him a jacket and possibly a pair of shoes.
Did you see what size he was?
He was 9, so I get him 9 or 9 and a half. There goes, man. You've done more for me today than they've done for me ever. Thanks a lot. God bless you. And I'm like, you know what? That made me feel really good. Yeah. That I actually got the opportunity to help somebody and that actually needed help. I try to explain to people and politically educate them and have classes. We have a stage right here. We teach class. We're teaching those people why they're poor. And people just start gathering. They want to know. They know what their legal rights are. They know how to fight for themselves along with us. And those same people that we were teaching, that we're learning, we would say, we're having a protest downtown. And everybody be like, just get up.
They realize they have a voice. It gave them a sense of empowerment.
Pretty soon, everybody's, man, when are you gonna, you need to protest this too. You know, take the union down there and protest this too. I'll speak on it, yeah. You realize that you're not doing this really for self. I think somebody assigned you to this job, Patrick, and I believe God assigned me right to this job, and that's my job, and I'm gonna keep this assignment and do the best I can at it. We do have a road that we're on, and we just need other people to walk with us on that road.
Thank you so much, Richard, for sharing that with everyone. Up next, we're going to have some people who worked closely as friends and also as fellow organizers. So first, I'd like to introduce Lorette Steinberg, who is with the Rochester Homeless Union, House of Mercy, and the Social Welfare Action Alliance.
Hi. Excuse me. Hi. Yeah. Let's see. So I am on. All right. This is a hard piece to watch. I'm sure it is for many people. Richard, I'd like to thank you so much for making that video. I saw it before, of course. I've seen it a few times. But watching it, I watched it earlier today and watching it again now, it just reminds me, it's like being with Patrick again. And it's hard knowing that that is not possible tomorrow. Patrick and I worked as collaborators and eventually as friends for at least a couple of years in calling attention to homeless issues in Rochester. We both had been working with Poor People's Campaign and Rochester Social Welfare Action Alliance, and I joined the Rochester Homeless Union at his invitation. Patrick and I often said that we learned a lot from each other, and we also learned a lot together. Weekly, we spent at least a day together just doing research or producing material for actions. He'd show me a picture he found on the internet and described how it demonstrated what he was trying to say in words. I'd work up a couple of variations for posters, and we'd go over them, and I'd explain as a professional how visual imaging communicates, and he'd just grin because he knew it. He knew that's what it said, but he didn't have the words that professionals use about visual communication. I told him that he had great instincts for the work of speaking visually, and we'd laugh together in triumph every time that we discovered we were thinking along the same lines for messaging ideas. That was such a pleasure to use. It was such a pleasure to see him get really excited about having those tools. Often Patrick would come up with an idea and he'd give me an assignment outright. He'd call me up or he'd text me and say, I want you to do this. And those of you who've worked with Patrick know that that's what he would do. I want you to do this. We have to do this. It's important. He understood the power of communication, and he had so much to communicate, as you could hear in Richard's wonderful film. Patrick wanted people to understand that nobody asked to be poor, that getting out of poverty was so very, very hard, and too often it was even impossible due to the obstacles of things like the lack of affordable housing, lack of jobs and education, or even health care. New housing construction in Rochester, as you can see in Richard's film, had promised affordable units. But their idea of affordable was far from affordable for poor and homeless people. So when the Cadillac Hotel closed and forced its residents out, that became a real focal point for homeless in the community. During one of our sessions together, I shared with Patrick a 2020 episode called Miracle on 43rd Street. It's about a hotel that had been renovated to provide low-income housing and assisted transition housing for homeless individuals. At the time, the original group was called Common Ground, and I think that they changed their name into something else. But it was a real model of how people could be able to move from homelessness to some sort of stability. Patrick got so excited when I showed him that. It's a 20-minute segment. It's something that I still remember that stays with anybody who's watched it. And it was a delight to see Patrick say, yes, yes, and think about the Cadillac Hotel. Something like those projects made sense. And Patrick immediately became excited, wanting others to understand what the Cadillac could become. Last year, before the pandemic shutdown, we were looking at some larger pictures. One of the big questions that kept coming back was who profits from poverty? We could see some of the people who were profiting from poverty. We could see people who were offering poverty services and were being given tons of grants. And the number of services, the amount of aid being given were so little. And the people in the shelters here, the people in House of Mercy, knew that they weren't being reached. Patrick knew that they weren't being reached. It's a question we still need to answer in honor of Patrick. Who profits from poverty? The Rochester Homeless Union had been planning a large event, a march and an action calling for the Cadillac to be renovated and for an opening for poor and homeless housing. We had the date, we had posters ready, we had planned logistics before the shutdown. Preacher had even made a number of things for the marchers to carry, but then the shutdown, the pandemic happened, and all of that, all of those plans, everybody in the Rochester Homeless Union was very, very excited about our plans. I mean, we were just building one after another at those Monday night meetings. Well, I want you to know that later this spring, Rochester Homeless will renew this effort. We know it is still important. We know we still have to communicate those things that were important to Patrick. Patrick, we want you to know that you will be with us there in our hearts and in our thoughts. We love you, dear friend, brother, and ally. Thank you for all being here.
Thank you, Lorette. Next, we will hear from Ryan Akoff with the Citywide Tenant Union.
Yeah, yeah, it's really hard for me to be here and to speak, but I'll just share a couple things about my dear brother. Yeah, I was just listening to people talk, and I was listening to Tyrone, and talking about Patrick's tunnel vision, and I felt like that was a great way to describe him because he just had this tunnel vision for justice, and he was taking us. I felt like he was taking us all down the tunnel, and there was only one way to go. And yeah, I've met a lot of people in my life, but I'm not sure if I've met somebody with such a singular focus. I knew him, for a while before he got involved with the homeless union, founded the homeless union, and then circumstances came together, and we were so blessed to have Willie Baptist and other folks come to Rochester. We were so blessed to have Kristen, come and be at support. And once he understood that there was such a thing as the homeless union, I just felt like it gave him words, vision, and stuff, everything he'd already known and already felt, gave him that clarity. And once he was on that train, there was no getting off it. And I'm just so blessed to know him and so inspired by him because if other people have said, he just night and day, all he was thinking about was the suffering of homeless folks, lifting up people, empowering people, how to study, how to disrupt the system, how to make things better, how to liberate folks, how to end homelessness. Just nonstop for whatever the journey began, specifically with the homeless union. He did advocacy before that. I know back in the days he used to talk about advocacy he did with farm workers, and how he would go and speak to legislators and advocate for farm workers' rights. So he was just such a natural at as an organizer and a leader. But I just his focus and inspiration, I think that's one of the things that just really always moved me. Whenever we were talking about, for many years, Rochester, just been the issue of sanctions, people being cut off public assistance for long periods of time, deprived of all benefits, all housing, shelter, everything. And he went everywhere, to the county executive, to the county ledge, and organize other people to speak out and protest. And I remember we were talking, and we were like studying it, and we're like, this is a state law, denying people of all these their human rights and their benefits. And he's like, well, then we got to pass a state law. And he's like, well, I'm like, Patrick, we don't have a senator in Rochester. They're all Republicans, and they're not going to pass a law to do this. He's like, well, then we'll go to Syracuse. So we looked it up. We found the senator, and that was Patrick. We just went on the road, whatever needed to be done. This guy would go to the end of the earth, right? Whether anywhere in the country, anywhere in the region, if he thought it was forwarding the task of justice. And, and against all odds, he is the lead advocate of, he spoke to Senator May in Syracuse, and she introduced this bill after talking with him. And as a Herculean task, him being the lead advocate, this law passed through the legislature, which is, anybody's been around politics knows how almost impossible that is. It was just such a great victory. And then, our Governor Cuomo, he vetoes the bill, and Patrick, if he was discouraged, it must have been for a couple of seconds. He's on next. He's showing me the veto message, and he's saying, this is how we're going to do this, and this is how we're going to do that. This is going to how we'll override the veto, right? And this was just one of those things that was in his continuing path because he's so much passion and commitment, and he had this ability to just bring other people along with him. His smile, his intelligence, his sense of humor, his realness, everything about him, because he was for real. And yeah, I'm just going to miss him. And, but there's so many people that have been activated and that have been awakened and that have been inspired by Patrick. And I know that he would want us to just, keep going and to keep fighting, these battles that he's helped ignite and taken to the next level around making sure everybody is not cut off their benefits. One of the paths to housing is a human right. Getting the Cadillac and other buildings for the people who deserve it the most, not for the developers, the profiteers. So, I just hope, we make him proud, and, the work we do going forward, he can smile on us and say, thank you, because he gave us so much, and hope we can take it forward. So I'm just blessed to know him, and I'm so glad we're here together to honor him. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Next, we're going to hear from Kim Smith from Vocal New York.
Blessings, everyone, and it is so great to be here, honoring the life and times of Patrick. I first met Patrick about 4 years ago when I started organizing through Vocal New York, Voices of Community Activists and Leaders, a statewide grassroots organization. And I was introduced to Patrick. And as I was sitting here listening to the program and the opening song, Someone is Hurting My Brother and I Won't Be Silent Anymore, those words resonated for me and reminded me of Patrick the activist. Patrick fought for injustice and actually grasped the opportunity to fight for injustice of any kind. Some of my fondest memories of Patrick was when he joined Vocal New York. We went to Albany and we were discussing the overdose crisis at a rally at the Capitol. And there were hundreds of people there, and Patrick co-emceed that event. And he really brought light to the intersectionality between homelessness and the overdose crisis. Shortly after that, I remember us just walking the halls of the legislative buildings, talking to senators and the assembly just across New York State, trying to get them to sign on to our bills. And Ryan just recently mentioned Senator May in Syracuse. And I was speaking to Senator May last month about decriminalizing syringes. And we spoke about sanctions, and she talked about Patrick. As I commended her for this awesome presentation she gave on the Senate floor. And she mentioned that her words were inspired by Patrick and everything that he had educated her on. And when I listened to, in the video, when Patrick mentioned that it is God who leads him in this work, I thought about the song that the gentleman sung so nicely, Precious Lord, Take My Hand. That reminded me of just Patrick the leader and how he would show up at statewide events as well as local events, talking about marijuana justice, priority housing for our HIV population. He came to us on a couple trips to Albany, really educating other leaders of Vocal New York across New York State on how to be an effective leader. I can go on and on about Patrick and some of the memories I have. I know in looking at that video, it brought me back almost as though it were yesterday, going with the House of Mercy as we shut down Main Street for 89 seconds during intersections to represent the 89,000 homeless New Yorkers across the state. And that number has since been exacerbated. And I remember him telling me that we needed to do a bus trip to Albany, but the bus needed to leave from the House of Mercy because we needed to meet people where they are and empower them to get on the bus, to show up and tell their stories and speak truth to power. And Patrick was a leader who had a smile that would melt your heart, but a fire within him that caused him to speak with so much conviction that when he opened up his mouth to speak, everyone listened. Homelessness is really been politicized here in Rochester, and we are in the middle of a revolution in which Patrick's spirit is in the middle of it. And so, Patrick, it's just a blessing to be here to speak on behalf of Patrick. Patrick, may you rest in paradise and rest in action, knowing that this movement will go on. Be well.
Thank you, Kim. Next, we're going to hear from Assembly Member Damon Meeks.
Hello? Can you hear me? Awesome. So I have some plenty of fond moments with Patrick, and Patrick was truly a brother. You know, we often say in our neighborhood, a brother from another mother, and that's what Patrick truly was to me. And Patrick just had this way about him, like whenever he talked to you, he always lifted your spirit. He was one to like just encourage everyone, and he wanted to see everyone become their best version of oneself. Two words that I often use to describe him is, one is selfless. He was one who was always willing to put others before himself, and it wasn't so much about waiting for a like he understood inside outside game. So like the inside game was, how do we change policies? How do we put pressure on the power players to get the things that the people need? And the outside game was, okay, we're going to work on those things, but we also have to mobilize people and get them energized and fighting for themselves as well as fighting for others. And that's what often brought us to, you know, the Cadillac Hotel and Main Street as it related to advocating for marginalized communities. And that just meant a lot to me, like just that selfless spirit and focusing on how can I just affect needed change for others and putting others before oneself. And the other word is love. I mean, he was just a loving individual. And, you know, the last time I spoke to him was on February 4th. He called me and left me a voice message. And often, like, if I would miss his call, I would call him right back. And I called him right back, and he was really excited about other opportunities that he was, you know, taking on at that time. And the next day, February 5th, which was my birthday, and I was out to dinner when I received the phone call of his passing, and like it really hurt me. I was at dinner with my wife, and I was just at a loss for words and couldn't really express to her what was going on with me at that time. And I was eventually able to tell her, like, this is what happened. Patrick passed, and I just received a phone call letting me know that. And, I just can appreciate that. I know that Patrick has gone on to a better place because he was truly a soldier in the army of the Lord. And he was a soldier on this side of the track as far as here on earth. And I know that he's gone on to be a soldier in heaven as well. So I just want to say thank you all for taking time to organize a memorial, because he is truly worthy to be recognized for the great works that he's done in this community. And it's something that I'm still committed to in doing that work. I happen to be an assembly member, but I'm one that's truly committed to people. And something that we had in common was the mindset of being a servant leader, focusing on providing service, but yet recognizing that God had called you to be a leader. So I'm just grateful to be here and, grateful to continue to work. And I look forward to continuing to work with a number of you on this call to affect needed change in this community. And like I said, I'll, continue to miss Patrick. And I was grateful to know him and recognize him as a brother. So thank you all, and God bless you all.
Thank you, Demond. Next, we're going to be together again in song Rich Man's House, performed by Sharon Rebar with the New York State Poor People's Campaign.
Hey, everybody. Really grateful to be with you all tonight and to be here to honor and lift up Patrick. It's hard to think that, we're not going to be in the same space with Patrick again, but I know that the commitment he made and the deep passion that he had for this work and the lessons that he taught each of us will continue to be present for us, and continue to push us forward to make that kind of commitment that he had made in his life, and the walk that he walked every day. And I am going to share this song, and it's one of Patrick's favorite songs. He would often ask me to sing this song at whether it be a gathering or rally. And I think I was listening to everyone talk about Patrick, and I've known Patrick for a number of years, first with the Homeless Union and the Poor People's Campaign. And I think Patrick always had a deep commitment and compassion for folks. But like others had said, I think one of the things that I really saw develop over these last few years was just the genuine clarity that he saw about what was making people poor, what was forcing people into homelessness in this country, and how important it was to be able to share that clarity with others. And I think it's why he liked this song so much, the song Rich Man's House, that talks about seeing, that the reason that we're poor, the reason we're homeless, the reason that we're fighting for health care that we should have, right? All of these things, that it's the same system, right, that keeps dispossessing us, that keeps taking and stripping our humanity. And Patrick fought to the end to make sure that we had our dignity, that we had our humanity, each and every person. And he actually, one of the last correspondence I had with Patrick, I just wanted to share this before sharing the song. It was over the holidays, and he said, together we have to have faith that change will be made. Our voice is the tip of the sword. Keep it sharp as we go into battle for our people. And that was really, what Patrick brought. He fought against the war on the poor, and he reminded us every day that that's what we had to keep doing. So I share that as we sing this song, and I would invite you. It's a song that's meant to be shared together, and though we can't fully do that in these spaces, I'd ask you to sing it. Sing it for Patrick tonight, and sing it loud. I went down to the rich man's house, and I took back what he stole from me. Took back my dignity. I took back my humanity. Went down to the rich man's house, and I took back my humanity. Took back my dignity. I took back my humanity, and now it's under my feet, under my feet, under my feet, under my feet. Ain't gonna let no system walk all over me. Well, I went down to the landlord's house and I took back what they stole from me. I took back my dignity. I took back my humanity. Well, I went down to the landlord's house and I took back what he stole from me. I took back my dignity. I took back my humanity, and now it's under my feet, under my feet, under my feet. Yes, it's under my feet. Ain't gonna let no system walk all over me. Well, I went down to the HUD office and I took back what they stole from me. I took back my dignity. I took back my humanity. Well, I went down to the HUD office and I took back what they stole from me. I took back my dignity. I took back my humanity, and now it's under my feet, under my feet, under my feet. Yes, it's under my feet. Ain't gonna let no system walk all over me. And now we're going one more place where Patrick liked to go, as folks said. We're going over to the Capitol in Albany. Well, I went down to the Capitol and I took back what they stole from me. I took back my dignity. I took back my humanity. Well, I went down to the Capitol and I took back what they stole from me. I took back my dignity. I took back my humanity, and now it's under my feet, under my feet, under my feet. Yes, it's under my feet. Ain't gonna let no system walk all over me. I said it's under my feet, under my feet, under my feet. Yes, it's under my feet. Ain't gonna let no system walk all over me.
Whew, thank you so much, Sharon. I know Patrick would say to me very regularly that he loved your voice so much. He would always talk about, Sharon, that girl can sing, and he would always bring it up. And so I'm so happy that you were able to sing one of his favorite songs with us tonight. This next part of the program, even though it's really been clearly highlighted the activist work that Patrick did, we really want to be intentional about really showing about all the organizations that he touched and that he impacted and worked closely with. And so the first one we're going to start with, of course, is the Rochester Homeless Union, in which he founded and has been the president of for 5 years. I joined the Rochester Homeless Union this past year and worked with Patrick. And from the beginning, we talked about and shown in the film of he got everyone together, and it was nothing about us without us. He was here at the House of Mercy. He was at St. Joe's. He was at Open Door Mission. He was going to the homeless shelters. He was going to Tent City. He was going to the encampments, going to people and bringing them what they needed, teaching them why they're poor and it's not their fault, and bringing people together to protest. And we see what happened at the Cadillac, and he was only building that. And even with COVID this year, when everyone kind of got sucked back to his homes, and when I joined him of figuring out how to build that power, how to stay as a collective when we're all isolated alone. And the work that I was doing with Patrick was the winter offensive that we did the last few months. And the big thing that Patrick wanted to work on with the Homeless Union and his goal for this year that we talked about every day was wanting to show who is profiting off of poverty, that there are people who say they're trying to help but really aren't. He really wanted to expose everything that was being done, the failures of the county, of our New York State, of our nation, on people who are poor and who are homeless. And he wanted to educate people and bring people together, and he wanted to house people. He would talk to me. He really wanted to start a nonprofit because he wanted to get the funds. He wanted to find people housing. He wanted to feed people, and he was always bringing people what they needed. Every week he would talk to me about a new person he found an apartment for, but he didn't want to stop there. He wanted to then bring those people together to challenge power, to study. He was constantly studying and learning more. He loved learning, and he saw so clearly what he was always teaching others. Always teaching others. I learned from him every single day that I worked from him. And it's something that will not die without him. And we are going to continue on the Rochester Homeless Union, and we are going to build leadership in the direction that he so clearly gave to us. And we're so grateful that he gave us that clear mission of where we're going. The next group that I want to highlight is House of Mercy, and we have Sister Rita Lewis, who is going to explain to us the work that Patrick did at House of Mercy.
It was a real blessing for us to get to know Patrick. I personally got to know him working with the Homeless Union, and there came a time where he needed housing himself, so we did invite him to come to the House of Mercy and live with us. And we really loved having him here to be a part of us, and then to work with the advocacy and fighting homelessness and fighting the structures that were causing this injustice to continue. The issue that really got us to know Patrick really well certainly was the closing of the Cadillac Hotel, where we really organized. And I can never forget, as we spent the night there, how protective Patrick was and really wanted to look out for our comfort as much as possible and just make sure we were safe. And I mean, he was a real blessing and a real gift for us, definitely. And he showed real care for people in their need. So I remember him. He would also be present for our religious services on Sunday. And he would be willing to read scripture during Mass. And it was just so wonderful to see him be present and share with us during our prayer and during Mass. He was also present during the celebration for Martin Luther King Day. And he would be part of organizing what we were going to do and be part of the program. And it was just wonderful to have him do this and be one of us. And I was struck by how he wanted to learn more and more about leadership. And he certainly took to Sister Grace and wanted her to teach him more about leadership and how to do it. And he was so grateful for our Friday night classes, where we would get together and read a book and just talk about it and share about it. And again, it was a real nice time to get to know each other and to hear where God was at in our own lives. So I can say that Patrick certainly did have a relationship with the Lord. It definitely came through. And so I know that he is with the Lord right now. And I can just think of him being with um, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Mother Teresa, people who dedicated their lives to serving others, because that's what Patrick was about. And that's what he really wanted to do, was to serve others. And we were very blessed to have him, and thank God for bringing him into our lives. And so many of our workers and the guests, felt very sad when we heard about him dying. It was hard to believe. It was a shock. But we know he is with the Lord, and we take comfort in that. And we know that we will continue to think of him and keep him present in our own hearts and continue the work that was so important to him. So thank you very much for doing this and for honoring Patrick, who deserved it so much. So blessings to all.
Thank you, Sister Rita. Next, I'm going to have representing Citywide Tenant Union, Barbara Rivera.
Patrick, our brother, our friend, our comrade, a soldier in the community. I met Patrick 3 years ago when I was fighting for my housing, and he was very supportive, very just like a brother, pretty much gave the best advice. And I was always excited to do protests with Patrick, whether we were in Albany or in front of the Cadillac screaming 89,000, shutting down downtown and making it hectic for people to get through the light. He didn't care. He's like, block the streets. The people need to hear us in the streets. One thing I always loved about Patrick was that if you're feeling down, he just knew what to say to pick you back up. Every time I seen him, he'd say, Barb, how are you doing? And I'm like, surviving, hanging in there. And just as fast as I would say that, he would say, what did I say? Tell you about that. Stop surviving, start living. And that resonated with me, because a lot of us out here are surviving instead of living. And with that advice, I always wake up and I'm like, I'm living today. I'm blessed. Thank God. I remember Patrick was just this person that you can call on when you were having a bad day. He was always available no matter what he was doing. He always called you back. I know his love for the community, the Homeless Union, the House of Mercy was just so big that it's just a shame that it was only one person just out here in the community reaching out to people at night in the roughest neighborhoods. Patrick would walk down the street like nothing, and people would just gravitate to him. And it was like a sense of trust that he had with people. And anyone who's seen Patrick out in the street knew what he was doing and what he was about. And the love that he had for the folks that would walk through the doors at the House of Mercy, all of his brothers and sisters, he would treat them like family. He would, if you were a new face, he would say, hey, you need help? You have something in your stomach? He'll go in the kitchen, grab something, bring it to them. He would make them feel so at home. And I've never seen Patrick raise his voice at anyone or just be angry. He was always just so sweet, nice, calm. You can talk to him no matter how roughest the person was. To me, I'm this person, and he was just didn't know me at all, and he was just there all the time. We would talk to each other on the phone. It was funny that I think Lorette said that he was always studying. It's true. He was always studying. He was always like reading up on an article, reading on a book, and then he'll have a great idea and he'll run it by you, call you and be like, I have this thing on my mind. I just need someone to hear it. And I'm like, yeah, like, what is it? Like, I would get just excited. He would fuel my fire. You know, I started organizing 3 years ago. And when I met Patrick, he was always like, keep going, because some days are harder than others. And he always just knew what to say to make you feel better and to get you going and to antagonize you, to know who to go against. And he would always say, like, the system failed our people, but we're here to change the narrative and to, like, continue moving forward and to change the narrative and to just, we're not going to fail our people. He would always remind me that we're the ones that are not going to fail our people, and we're the ones that are going to make things better for our community. And I'm going to end this with saying, like, Patrick's chapter in this work isn't closed. It's going to stay open. And we're going to continue pushing the work where he left off. And as a community, we're going to keep thriving together. We're going to help each other, support each other. He will be missed for sure, but never forgotten. In every space that we're in, we're always going to make sure that he is remembered and honored in the way that people like Patrick should be honored. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Up next, we're going to have, for the New York State Poor People's Campaign, Joe Gentile.
Good evening, and thank you to all who are present remembering Patrick, and to the organizers that helped put this together. It is hard. I carry him in my heart. I first got to know Patrick probably back around 2018 as I became more involved with the Rochester's Poor People's Campaign and somewhat with SWA, the Social Work Action Alliance, following the Rochester Truth Commission in April of 2018. In 2019, we became more involved together with leadership as our local committee grew and worked through the 40 days of action, both here and in Albany, and planning for the More Tour and other local actions you've heard people speak about, along with the Rochester Homeless Union and Citywide Tenants Union and other organizations. We also attended the 2019 statewide People's Assembly and got to know each other better on the state coordinating committee that we both served on. I always knew Patrick to be a committed and dedicated warrior for the homeless in our community. And frequently he would correct me and say, they're not homeless, they're houseless. Wherever they are is their home. And I really cherish that. And he was kind about that correction too. This commitment and his dedication to be a warrior for these folks who were without housing grew out of his own personal experiences, his faith, and his commitment to educate himself about social justice and change. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. described two reasons we use direct action. The first was to dramatize an issue, to educate the public about an injustice that might not be widely known about, and to express the anger and the rage and the outrage and the dismay that people were feeling. The second reason that we're called to action would be to create leverage in our negotiations and to mobilize people to counter the power structures that have become barriers to genuine change. Patrick's work exemplified both, but perhaps leaned more into the second. In discussing and planning actions, meetings or events, Patrick always wanted to go bigger, and he always wanted to have governmental or policymakers at the table to hear directly from the people who were suffering and who were impacted. Patrick kept his personal journey and struggles close to his heart. He would occasionally reveal glimpses as we drove to an event or as he prepared some of his testimonies. I remember driving to the 2019 People's Assembly, and we shared a little bit about our experiences as men growing up in this world in very different circumstances, what it was like to be fathers, what it was like to have political views, what it was like to try to understand our places in the world. And he was very kind in sharing that. And at the assembly, I would, at the end of the day, I'd be exhausted, and I'd say, I'm going to go grab a cup of tea and sit and kibitz with folks. And Patrick would open his books. They were on his nightstand next to the bed. And he says, I got some studying to do, Joe. I'll catch you in the morning. I think he was going outside for a cigarette, too. He had a great sense of humor. And I missed the phone calls, as a number of people have said. The last one, well, many of them would be like, okay, Joe, what meetings did I miss this week? Catch me up. Or he would call with enthusiasm about a new person he had met, either in the street or at another meeting, who we needed help, who we needed our help, or he needed his help, or someone that we needed to bring into our campaign. The last call I got from him was about a week before he passed. And we're going through some changes in our leadership here. And he'd call me, he said, Joe, what's this? You're not leaving, are you? We're not letting you go. I said, no, Patrick, there's just some shifting here. He goes, man, you're with us. We're not letting you go. We're going to work together through this. And I really cherish those moments. So all I can say is he was a truly compassionate leader who became a friend and a mentor and a brother to me and many others. And we will all miss him. And I personally know that we're going to carry on his work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. We're now going to hear from Tony Prince with the National Union of the Homeless.
Well, hello, everybody. First of all, I want to apologize for coming on a little bit late. And I think I may have missed some of the family members, Patrick's siblings and perhaps his children. So I want to apologize for that and begin by saying that on behalf of the National Union of the Homeless and our executive board, we want to send our deepest condolences and offers of support in whatever way we can provide that to the family members, Patrick's family members. And of course, we're part of that family too, but most immediately his blood relatives and those who he helped bring into the world and those who helped sustain him in this world. So we want to reach out to them first and foremost. I met Patrick he came to New York when we were putting on a presentation a few years ago about the California Homeless Union and a little talk we gave about revolutionary lawyering. And here he was sitting at this table, and I'll be God danged if he didn't say one word. I mean, all he did was take a lot of notes. That's what I observed about Patrick at that meeting. And but at the end of the meeting, he had he thought it was good and all the rest of it. Next time I saw Patrick was on a trip to Rochester, and we sat around the table meeting at the House of Mercy with the union sisters and brothers. And he sat on a side where I have a bad ear and I could hardly hear him. So we had to switch seats. He was a soft-spoken guy. And so I said, geez, does this guy ever really open his mouth and ever really kind of speak in a dynamic fashion? And then the next place we went to was the Cadillac. And that's when I found out that, yeah, he can definitely open his mouth and speak in a dynamic fashion. So he was all of those things. He could be a sponge and was a sponge, absorbing everything around him, everybody's experience and what he himself had experienced and what he studied. So, the still waters run deep. And of course, he wasn't still waters, but he could be. And I think that that's a lesson we should learn, that leaders are not necessarily people with the loudest voice or, the most strident, but people who solve problems, people who see a little bit further, feel a little bit deeper, and then share their experience with everybody else. And that was Patrick. Also, I think I want to go back to something that Ty pointed out, and that was that, you oftentimes had Patrick, and once he became part of the National Union of the Homeless, and we had our executive board meetings, or if he spoke at a gathering, an online gathering or a live gathering, He was very well known for putting aside whatever prepared remarks he might have put together and instead speaking not just from his heart, but from his experience. Patrick Braswell was not about a cookie cutter speech or a script. He was about enmeshing his live experience with what he had learned in order to teach others and share that experience. And when he shared his experience as a tree trimmer and a farm worker at one of our meetings, he crystallized the whole position of the homeless in the United States. We're part of that working class. We have people who became disabled as a result of work that they did and led to injury and disease. We have people who couldn't afford to pay the rent despite having 2 or 3 jobs. And even now, the majority of those who are regarded as homeless are working in some form or fashion. And when he shared that story about being a tree trimmer and a farm worker and leading a strike of farm workers because the grower was making them work on Sundays, that was a crystallization of what we're all about. And that was just a live example of how we can't afford to be isolated, that our movement has to be broad, and we need to change the narrative. I think also I want to refer to another point that Ty made, because I think it's equally important if we're going to learn some lessons from our experience. And that was that Patrick was always asking how everybody's doing. It was important to him. You got the sense that it was not pro forma. It was not just, how you doing, buddy? But he really wanted to know how everybody was doing. And I think that's a lesson we can come away with. You know, we all need to be very mindful of our sisters and brothers, especially those of us who are taking it upon our shoulders to lead this fight, to really genuinely inquire as to how we're doing and do what's necessary to assist each other, to listen really carefully, like Patrick did, to what people are saying and how they're saying it. And I fault myself, quite frankly. I could have been more attentive to that issue. And I think all of us can learn that lesson. We have our dear leaders, and it's a great loss to the Rochester Union, to the citizens of the world, and to the National Union of the Homeless to have lost Patrick. I think also that, you know, Patrick was also about again, enmeshing an understanding of what's going on with, he wasn't an armchair revolutionary. He was out there fighting, and he could draw the lessons from that fight. And I think the old saying that a slave who understands he or she is a slave is already half free. So that the importance of explaining to people, hey, it's not your fault. Here's where the fault lies, in the fact you can't afford traditional housing. Here are the parties and forces responsible, you know, for your plight. Don't blame yourself like the system wants you to do. So that alone brought people halfway towards being free. And then he also provided the organizational means to achieve that freedom, to attain that freedom. And that's the homeless union movement. So I have here, this is what we had when we met during the Poor People's Congress 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago. There's Patrick's signature right there. We all signed off, committee to reestablish the National Union of the Homeless. And it's a day we'll never forget. It's a day that wouldn't have been possible in many respects without Patrick. The Rochester Union was 5 years in existence when Patrick left us. And so it had been on the ground organizing for some time. We had been on the ground organizing for a slightly longer period of time in California. And of course, I think I speak on behalf of Willie and Sabina, Kristen, all of us who go to the original union, that what we saw in Patrick was 10 times, the whole position we're in today is we're 10 times more ready for this fight, even with smaller numbers than we were back then. So I'll just finish by saying, you know, when you talk about, and I like what everyone said about Patrick still with us, of course he's with us, just as all these great leaders and teachers in history are still with us. And I would suggest that we mine more conscientiously. Let's mine Patrick Braswell's life and lessons, because there's a lot of them. Just like now, you see, we're reaching back in an even more focused analysis of what Dr. King had to say a more focused analysis of what Fred Hampton said and did. You know, we not just the superficial, but the profound. And I think this needs to be done with everything that Patrick brought to us. So, Assemblyman Meek said that he was a soldier in God's army. He was a general. He was a general. He was a general in what we're building today, in the army that we're assembling, and we will assemble to put an end to homelessness and poverty forever. So thank you so much for having us, and long live Patrick Braswell. Long live the Rochester Homeless Union and the National Union of the Homeless.
Sorry, I was muted. Thank you so much, Tony. And I also want to lift up Volunteers of America, Vocal New York, and Social Welfare Action Alliance, other organizations that Patrick deeply touched and impacted. Next, I would like to invite Lorette Steinberg, and we're going to lead into an invitation to share more to share more memories of those who are also close to Patrick.
Hello. Thank you all for sharing your wonderful thoughts and your memories and your experiences with Patrick. I know that there are a couple of people who would like to speak. One of them is Tim Schenk of the Poor People's Campaign, so I'd like to call on Tim first.
Good evening, everybody. It's great to be here, sharing memories and sharing stories and sharing grief and rededicating ourselves. Patrick's just been such a huge loss. I get to work with him the last 3 years or so, and a lot of the times when we would talk is when I was walking around the neighborhood with my toddler, and she would be either in the stroller or out pushing the stroller now, as the case might be, because she's about to be 3 and she won't get in there anymore. But just the other day, it was warm out, and I was like, wow, I got to call Patrick. Let me see what Patrick's doing. And so, I mean, this is just, it's every day, you know, it's not that, yeah, it's not that it's just kind of close the book and close a chapter, but so I don't know what stage of grief this is, but I'm still mad as hell. I'm still mad. And just remembering Patrick, you know, just hearing all these stories, it just kind of brings him back and brings the videos and all the memories back. Things in our meetings, when he started talking, things got really real. You know, it wasn't about an intellectual exercise for him, you know, talking about poverty or talking about homelessness or talking about capitalism or whatever we got into. This was a real thing for him. It was people dying around him, and then it was him, you know. So I don't want to say a lot tonight, and I just appreciate everybody who's been speaking, but a lot of activists, I think, you know, really put a lot of their hopes on, and they love big numbers, you know. How many people did you have out to the action, or how many people showed up? And, you know, our mentors have reminded us that 1 becomes 1,000 tomorrow. 1 today becomes 1,000 tomorrow. So I believe that we all here are among Patrick's 1,000, that he's going to keep teaching us and keep challenging us, and we're going to build that army that Brother Tony is talking about and that we're talking about. So bless you all. It's great to be here.
Thank you, Tim. Next, we'd like to hear from Tanisha Logan Lattimore.
Yes, hi, everyone. I'm honored to be here. I met, I don't want to cry, Patrick I met him several times, and it was kind of like the rest of you. He was very quiet. Um, and the very first time I met him, I thought, no, he looks a little mean or a little rough around the edges. But as time went by and seen him in a couple places, one time he said, "Oh, I like your tracksuit." The first time he said something to me, and I'm like, "Okay, all right." He is approachable, but I really was blessed to get to learn him as one of the Harriet Tubman Fellowship members. There was 3 of us, and in that we got to learn each other. We were learning to be leaders. We were picking each other's brains and things like that. And so I had the privilege and honor to call Patrick a friend in the fight, a friend in that we were all learning together to be better leaders. And I will certainly miss him. We had made a plan because I have a bunch of children, and he, I guess, has a friend that lives in Binghamton, an hour from me. And he said, "Oh, I'm going to come down there this summer." And I said, "Okay, we'll have a barbecue, something like that." But that just showed how, um, you know, friendly he was and sociable he was, and he was just a great guy, and he will certainly be missed. And and it does my heart good to hear everyone how you're gonna pick up that torch and continue what he has been a part of, and I appreciate that, and thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that too. It's really clear that Patrick touched so many lives. We apologize, by the way, for some of the technical glitches we're having right now. But one of the comments that we received, I will read to you now. It's from Peter Peters. "I will be joining you on March 21st. I had several conversations with Patrick in the past few years. He always impressed me as a person who was very clear in his thinking and knew what he was standing for. He stood for justice for those whose lives are often ignored or worse, criminalized. He knew the struggles people had, but he was not willing to join the chorus of blaming the victims. Instead, he spoke truth to power on behalf of those who were struggling. I am saddened by the loss of his leadership in the fight for housing justice, but I give thanks for his life and hope that the memory of his witness will encourage others to take up this fight." I thank you, Peter. Also, if you are listening, we have a number of people who are watching and listening via YouTube. I've been having some difficulty, and Sabine, I'll let you know this, getting all of the comments from the Facebook page. It doesn't always load some of the comments. I'm only getting some of them. With that, I'd like to also just say a few words myself. As a member of SWA, or Social Welfare Action Alliance, one of the organizations that we've talked about that has worked with Patrick, who Patrick worked with, he certainly helped everyone in Social Welfare Action Alliance understand more about the issues of poverty, especially the issues of poverty in Rochester. SWA is a group of social workers and human service workers, and then the odd person like me, a documentarian, who's been a SWA member for many years. And Patrick helped to educate all of us, but he also helped us to get the word out to others about poverty and homelessness specifically. SWA would have various kinds of programming for the public, including something called a reality tour that acquainted people with some of the issues specific to Rochester and Rochester neighborhoods. And Patrick was frequently a speaker on the tour, always heartfelt, always committed, as we all know. So I'd like to also thank Patrick and our experiences in his being able to speak to the public on SWA's behalf, but also to help SWA know more about the issues that Patrick cared so passionately about. One of the comments that I just got, one of the messages I just got, is that Sabine will read Brenda's comment, because apparently, Sabine, you were able to access that. If there are any others that I cannot access on Facebook, please let me know. And also, very good news is that Eric, Patrick's son, will be able to join us shortly. He's been traveling most of today to get here, and we're grateful that he could be here, because we do think of the family, and our hearts go out to them, and go out to also Patrick's family that he developed over time. All of us at the House of Mercy, all of us in SWA, all of us in the Poor People's Campaign, and the Homeless Union, and other groups that he worked with, including the Tenants Union. We all know Patrick really had an impact on so many people around Rochester and beyond. Let's see, and it has been both a pleasure and very painful to do the planning for this memorial service, but I definitely would like to add my thanks for all of you who are here. And Sabine, you have a comment from Brenda?
Yes, thank you, Lorette. So Brenda is Patrick's cousin, and she posted on the live stream. I am Patrick Brazel cousin Brenda Wilson, and I'm so very proud of the things that he did for so many people. And yes, his heart was for homeless peoples. We would spend hours talking about what needs to be done and what he wanted to do for the homeless. I miss him so very much, and it is very painful for me, my daughter, Rashonda, and two grandsons, Isaiah, Rashawn, my brothers, Tony, Willie Jr., my sisters, Vel, Rosemary, and my sisters-in-laws, Yvonne Collins, Cardenia Wilson, Brandy Collins, his sons, Eric, William, and the rest of the family's members. Thursday, February 5th was last time we talked, and he told me that he loved me, and I said, I love you too. As we're waiting for his son, Eric, to join us, I'd like to invite up Mildred Bartlett from House of Mercy to offer a prayer for all of us.
I'd like to say God bless to everyone. And I want to say tonight, I thank God for the House of Mercy. I thank God for the founder, Sister Grace Miller, CW, and Sister Rita. But most of all, I thank God for every one of you that I have listened to tonight. I thank God for how he sent Patrick over to the House of Mercy as a servant, as a warrior, as a deliverer. And I can say tonight, it is well with God with Patrick. I'm not crying. I'm saying, thank you, God, for the time that you sent him to the House of Mercy with our founder, Sister Grace, Sister Rita, CW, and every person that I'm surrounded tonight. I am so grateful. Now I can see Patrick looking up saying, God, Jesus, you know you sent me to that assignment. And I did, and I went, and I was directed by you. So now, God, I lift up my hands to my friends and to the House of Mercy and to all the ones that you have allowed me to work with. Thank you, God, for what you have done. I won't cry, I won't be sad, but I came to tell you tonight that we all came together to lift up the memorial of Patrick. Patrick tonight, if he was on this side, he would say, Sister Mildred, tell them to be happy because I am in God's will. And he was in their assignment. So tonight, I want to say to every person, to every organization who God allowed us to see Patrick and to love Patrick. And Patrick gave us his love, the love of God, the love of Jesus Christ. This is not over. It's just the beginning. So I just want to raise my hands to God and to Jesus and to Patrick. God bless. God bless all that he has brought together. In Jesus' name, in the blood of Jesus, Psalm 91, Patrick, we love you. And we will see you one day very soon.
Thank you. I just want to say he was my everything. I loved him. I will miss him. I won't forget about him. He's in my heart forever.
Amen.
Thank you, Jesus.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mildred, and thank you, Crystal.
Thank you for letting me come.
Absolutely.
Thank you for letting me speak.
All right, I think we're still waiting.
And
For
Kristen
Eric.
has something to read
Oh,
as well. That came late. Kristen, are you there?
I am. Hello.
Thank you.
We just got an email from one of the other regional coordinators in the National Union of the Homeless. Last April, we restructured. Patrick was part of that process with a number of other leaders. And Paul from Boston is one of our regional coordinators for the Northeast and works closely with Patrick around political education. Patrick had taken on a co-coordinator position of national political education, which you've heard many people talk about tonight, that was his passion and who he was. And Paul asked me to read this quick note. He's watching, but he couldn't comment. And he said, with the National Union of the Homeless, I knew you taught me a lot. Please, brother, rest in power. And I just want to say, that from all of us, that was the impression, and that was the impact Patrick had, was as our political education leader. So thank you for giving me that moment, and thank you, Paul, for sending that in.
Thank you so much, Kristen.
all right. As we wait, and I'll try and get in touch with Eric one more time, we also have a clip of Patrick speaking at the Homeless Memorial that we did here at House of Mercy back in December 2020, and I'm going to play it for everyone tonight.
Thanks for coming. I'm Patrick Braswell from the Rochester Homeless Union. We're at the House of Mercy, and throughout the years, I've been dealing in the sheltering system. I've witnessed and seen and heard talk about the many deaths of our people, and having a memorial is very meaningful to our team of people because we have concerns. Throughout the years, past and present, poverty and homelessness has taken the lives of our people. And seemingly without a concern, these lives carry no memory because they're overlooked. The Homeless Union and the many families are now given a day as a memorial to remember, to love, and miss their presence among us. We remember their names, and in our hearts, we will continue to love them. Their lives carried a reason and served a purpose. Homelessness kills, and we wish no more death in the streets. Their lives will never be forgotten. Mr. Gates, you want to speak about your experiences? I'm going to ask that, winter's coming. I'm going to ask each of you to continue to pray, to ask God, as I ask God to walk with me, as I go to oversee and to look after our people that are still in the street. I want to thank God that we were blessed this year to be given some of the things that are necessary to sustain life in the cold weather, in the tent cities, under the bridges, and the bus stations, and the little things that people like in front of the public library. People actually sleep out there in the garage, in the weeds, behind the Radissons. Just keep us in prayer. Ask God to put his hand on us and keep us warm. Ask God to give us the strength to carry on, to provide all that we need to stay alive. There's a many a death that we've passed by, that's been here, and I've seen on the street, and I don't want to see any more deaths in the street. We understand that poverty stricken, but we've learned that homelessness kills. I want to ask Sister Grace to come speak.
While we wait, should just be another minute for Eric to join us. I invite anyone in the Zoom room if they'd like to speak, or we can have another moment of silence just to take in and have just a mindful minute to hold the space for everything that we heard tonight. But I also open the space if anyone on this call, they'd like to share another word as we wait. Thank you all for your patience as we get Eric, his son, in here to speak.
If I can, Sabine, I'd like to ask Reverend Beth if she could say a few words. You know, since she began this and now she's heard so many things that people have shared, and I wondered if she would be willing to say a few words now. There's also apparently a comment on Facebook from Peter Kanoy. Which I can read. I can read that, and then we'll go to ask Pastor Beth. Peter Kanoy said, "Sorry, I am on live stream, so I can't tell you all how strong this man was. He told such a great story about how he learned to read with his cab driver father, who he learned later couldn't read himself." That's an incredible memory for Peter to share. Patrick told me many stories about how his father taught him mechanics and taught him how to repair cars. And later, as Patrick was getting older, he realized in part it was so that Patrick could keep the cabs running for his father as well. But it was a good and useful skill. And yes, he was a strong man. Thank you, Peter. That I had forgotten about that story, that he learned to read with his father who couldn't read. But yes, that was a wonderful, wonderful memory for him to share. And Reverend Beth, are you there still? I'm not sure if she is. Okay. Well, thank you all who are in House of Mercy too. I'm so sorry I could not be there. There's a good group there. I know that Joe, you're there, and Sister Grace and Sister Rita, and thank you, Mildred, for your prayer, and also Crystal. My heart goes out to you. For those of you who don't know, Crystal was Patrick's girlfriend. They were very close, obviously. And they both had a glow or smile that grew as their relationship grew. Sabine, you have any updates?
Yes, it will just be 1 minute. I'm so sorry for the technical difficulties. I appreciate everyone sticking around. Yeah, he should be.
I'll also add just one more comment that the music this evening was prepared with Patrick in mind as well. His favorite songs are those that were shared, especially Somebody's Hurting My Brother, and We're Going Down to the Rich Man's House. There was great gusto when that one was ever sung in the Rochester Homeless Union meeting. Is Eric coming through cell phone, or is he trying to get to house?
He'll be coming through cell phone soon. He just was traveling and was having some computer issues, so we're working getting it on his phone. Thank you, everyone who's sticking with us. And also say for everyone too, I know a lot of people on this call are also doing the powerful work of organizing against this system, but for anyone who is looking of how to continue on Patrick's work, his legacy, and his life, please join us with the Rochester Homeless Union, the National Union of the Homeless, Poor People's Campaign, House of Mercy, Social Welfare Action Alliance, Citywide Tenant Union, Volunteers of America, Vocal New York are all powerful organizations that Patrick worked with, and everyone could use our support. And it's amazing to see how we're all working together to achieve a common goal.
I'll read another comment. This is from Kamisi Black. Patrick was cadre. He was a revolutionary who never put himself before the movement and his people. He had a radical love for his community and class that was unparalleled. I'm honored and grateful to have been in community with him. While Sabine is trying to make arrangements, I will say that we worked very hard to include Patrick's family in tonight's memorial. He has a number of family members who have been in touch with us, people who have been really trying to make it possible to speak. I do know that a couple of people, of course, were a little shy about speaking, and so had left it to Eric, who lives in Florida most often and was traveling here all day. We really hoped that he would be able to make it to House of Mercy, but however he can, will be most welcome. I have a feeling Patrick would be giggling and laughing and chortling at us right now. And throwing up his hands.
There's a call for a song. I got
Yes.
put on my head, on my heart right now. Not sure if y'all can bear with me for a minute.
Thank you.
I was born by the river in a little tent, and just like the river, I've been running ever since. Yeah. I don't know the song very well, but I know that first verse, and I know that spoke to Patrick. So let me just keep trying. It's been a long time coming, but I know change gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. Well, I go to the movies and I go downtown. Somebody keep telling me, brother, don't hang around. It's been a long time coming, but I know change gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. Thanks for bearing with that. Love you, Patrick.
Thank you for your heartfelt and wonderful contribution.
Kristen, would you like to read a poem?
Sure, I would love to. I heard this poem recently. I believe it was at the Put People First Winter Retreat, and it made me really think about Patrick. It's called "The Low Road" by Marge Piercy. What can we do? What can they do to you? Whatever they want. They can set you up. They can bust you. They can break your fingers. They can burn your brain with electricity, blur you with drugs till you can't walk, can't remember. They can take your child, wall up your lover. They can do anything you can't stop them from doing. How can you stop them? Alone you can fight. You can refuse. You can take what revenge you can, but they will roll over you. But two people fighting, back to back, can cut through a mob. A snake dancing file can break a cordon. An army can meet an army. Two people can keep each other sane, can give support, conviction, love, massage, hope, sex. Three people are a delegation, a committee, a wedge. With four, you can play bridge and start an organization. With six, you can rent a whole house, eat pie for dinner with no seconds, and hold a fundraising party. A dozen make a demonstration. 100 fill a hall. 1,000 have solidarity and your own newsletter. 10,000 power and your own paper. 100,000 your own media. 10 million your own country. It goes on one at a time. It starts when you care to act. It starts when you do it again and they say no. It starts when you say we and know you who you mean. Each day you mean one more.
Thank you, Kristen. And I'm glad that we finally have Eric on. I'm not sure we can see you yet, but I think we should be able to hear you.
Okay, how y'all guys doing?
Good. Thank you so much for being here, Eric. We really appreciate it. The
And
floor is yours.
To you, Eric.
I appreciate it. I don't know if y'all guys can see me or not due to the fact that the reverse side of my camera is broken and I can't like see neither one of you guys right now. But we have audio. So with that being said, I definitely want to appreciate everybody that's tuning in and in a memory of my father. So long story short on that, I know a lot of y'all guys know him personally as well. He's a great man, very intelligent individual in his own ways. And what I mean by brilliant in his own ways is basically like, he sees a vision and he makes it become a reality. And everything that he done for the city of New York, it was given to him. And the reason I say it was given to him, it was just addicted by God to just bless him in the way that he done. And with that being said, is basically, he took that vision and tried to make it become a reality. And from the ins and outs of everything that I've been hearing and what I saw, I most definitely, Googled a couple things of that nature as well. As far as keeping in contact with him, we talk every now and then. And, he told me the ins and outs of, what he's basically trying to do for the homeless. And, I couldn't really say much, but I was very proud of him. And, he's going to be he's going to be truly missed. He's going to be truly missed. And I just appreciate everybody that's, just in remembrance of him. That what matters to me the most, just keeping keeping him alive by his, just remembering him. And y'all guys are doing a great job, and I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you so much for being here, Eric, and our hearts and love go out to you and your family. And thank you to everyone who is here with us tonight and shared or was watching in their homes on Facebook or YouTube, to really take this first step and the first step of honoring Patrick's life, because we are going to continue to do that every single day by continuing to live and do the work that Patrick was doing and that he was assigned. And so with that, I want to thank everyone for coming and staying with us for 2.5 hours. And we probably could have gone all night. Honestly, all of us telling stories of Patrick and the work that he did. It's just, you can't even, there are not the words to capture all of it. So with that, thank you. Eric, we can see you upside down.
I can see you now.
It's good to see you.
You guys can see me now. I don't know how.
You're upside down, but we can see you.
Upside down. So let's try this way. Is that a little better? Still upside down?
Oh, now I can't see you.
Okay, but hey, everybody.
Thank you for joining us after a long day of driving. We really appreciate it. And we hope to share more of these spaces together and to do something in person in a couple months. As it gets safer, we will definitely do an in-person action and continue the work that Patrick led. So thank you, everyone, for being with us tonight. And with that, can hold a few breaths together, and then we'll meet again soon, hopefully.
Thank you all, and good night.